Considerations before you move to a new country. So, moving abroad can be a really rewarding experience, and people do that for different reasons. It could be for a relationship, could be for family, could be for work, could be just for adventure, weather, and activity. But there's a lot of issues, a lot of considerations. So, we're going to cover some of the major points that you should think about when you're selecting a country and whether you even want to leave your home country. So, one big consideration are the requirements, your visa, your residency options. So, when you're looking at different countries, you want to make sure you can qualify to be there for an extended period of time. So, there's a retirement visas usually in a receiving your host country. It could be a temporary visa. Usually they have an income requirement or an asset requirement or some combination of those. Nomad visas, again, usually an income requirement so that you have some minimum income so that you're not taking jobs of their residents. An investor visa, if you come in with a certain amount of money and you spend it on a business or on real estate, they'll let you buy into residency or citizenship. If you have a family member, a child that's a citizen of that country, or it could be a spouse, or it could be a parent or grandparent sometimes, that could get you into that country as well. Sometimes it depends on the country. So those are just things to think about or consider. Look at the rules, make sure you qualify. Mexico, for instance, the temporary residency, the limits are a lot lower. It's 40,000 a year is your requirement, but that only lasts for 4 years. And then you have to meet the permanent residency requirements, which are 80,000 a year. And so if you don't meet that 80,000 a year of income, you're not going to qualify for permanent residency. So it might not be a great option. Maybe Panama or Colombia would be a better option, depending on your income. So those are just considerations based on your income. It's also important to know what the duration of the visas are, renewal periods. Can you change it within the country? Do you have to leave? What are the criteria? What documentation do you need? To get citizenship in Mexico, for example, there's a language exam and a civics exam. If you're 60 or over, you can skip the civics exam, but you do need the language exam. It's just things to know to see if it's worth doing it. I know Canada, there's a French exam. Start your paperwork early. They do take time. So if you're thinking of moving by the end of the year or into next year, just make sure you visited the consulate and you have things in order. Taxes, that could be another issue that could be a deal breaker for certain countries, depending on your situation, where your income's coming from. So for the US, it's kind of a no-brainer. You're going to file or you're going to pay US taxes on worldwide income. So if you have an income source in another country, if the income source is from the US, you file US tax return. You don't necessarily pay double taxes. You may, depending if there's a treaty or not, but you are going to file US taxes no matter what. Now, there is an exclusion. So if the country does have a treaty like Mexico, like Spain, then if you have income from Mexico, you pay your Mexican taxes on that income, but you can exclude that the taxes you paid on your US taxes. So you don't have to pay the taxes twice, but you do file US taxes on that income you earned in Mexico. Some countries, Spain, for example, have a wealth tax. Is that an issue? Could be, depends on your wealth, depends on even where in Spain you are. Andalusia, not so much. Barcelona could be an issue. Depends on how much you have in assets. Spain, I'll give another example. They tax Roth distributions, Mexico as well. So if you have a Roth IRA and you're thinking, ooh, this is tax-free money, well, it is in the US, but it isn't in a lot of other countries. So you take that Roth distribution and you are paying Spanish taxes on that. Just so if you're looking, you do get to exclude those taxes when you're filing US. May not be a big deal, may be a big deal. Maybe you want to take your distributions before you move. Just things to be aware of. Taxes on inheritance, taxes on gifts. I know US, we have gifts, we have a pretty high limit on gifts before you have to consider estate taxes, but other countries, there aren't that exclusion. So be aware of that. That could be a deal breaker, could be something you just want to consider. Inheritance, a lot of times you get an exclusion or it's not as much of an issue, but gifts could be taxed. A lot of times it's self-reported, but be aware of those issues. Again, that could be something where you don't want to stay. Maybe you don't want to be a tax resident of that country because it's not favorable or it's not worth it to you. So you stay, whatever the situation is, less than 90 days in that country or less than 183 days in that country, depending on the rules. When do you become considered a tax resident in that country? Cost of living. This is a good one to be aware of, just so you don't break your budget. The big one is housing. Where do you want to be? And don't just use a rule of thumb that, oh, this country is cheaper. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm moving to Spain, and Spain is cheaper. Well, Madrid might be more expensive than Tucson, or Mexico City might be housing maybe more expensive than Tucson. So I mean, look at where you're going, type of lifestyle you want. Do you want to be on a beach? Do you want to be in a bigger city? You looking for? Do you want 3 bedroom, 2 bath? Do you want extended? Do you want in a patio? Just what kind of housing do you want? Take that into account. Healthcare costs. A lot of times they're less expensive than in the US. Healthcare is expensive in the US. You have insurance that's very expensive, and that's even before you have any medical expenses. But consider that. I know in Mexico, what we do is pay out of pocket for a lot of our medical expenses, and then we have insurance for large expenses. If something large were to happen, if we were in an accident and broke something, then the insurance would kick in. You're in Europe, then you'd have insurance, and that would help with a lot of your medical expenses. Transportation, do you need a vehicle? Don't you? Where you are, public transportation may be a lot better, depending on where you are in the US, but it may be a lot better than your US city. So that could be a savings. Just depends on where you're moving to. Visa costs, renewing visas, those expenses, language classes, travel. No, some people treat living abroad as a vacation, and that cost could be more than living like a local. So you just want to be aware of that. What kind of lifestyle do you want? You're living like you're on vacation. It may be quite a bit more than just living like a local. So just be aware of that. If you're traveling a lot, be a lot higher. There's a lot of great calculators out there. There's a lot of great websites. There's a lot of forums out there, Facebook groups with Americans living in different communities, and you can get a lot of good ideas of what people are spending. And people live so differently. Some people live very simply, and some people quite a bit. Same as in the US. People have a lot of different lifestyles. Healthcare access and quality, again, evaluate what you're comfortable with. And speaking if you need, it's available. So when you're considering the country or the city or where you want to be, look at what you're comfortable with. You're young and healthcare access isn't as big of an issue. Great. If you need access to healthcare, just make that a consideration. You need to be near somewhere with a good cardio or clinic or something. Great. Just sure that's available. You need speaking, or are you comfortable with the host country language, or maybe the host country language is English? Great. Make sure that's and then, yes, insurance versus out of pocket, depending on where you are. Make sure it's good quality. You may want to visit clinics while you're doing scouting. Check on the Facebook groups or in the Americans in whatever host country you're at and look. Emergency response if that's an issue, if that's a concern, for sure. That's a big consideration, definitely a consideration. A lot of times the news highlights the worst of an area. So just get information. It might be worth visiting the area during the worst season, the coldest or the hottest or the rainiest, and make sure you're comfortable there. And people do move differently. Some people are just moving to another country for part of the year. Great. Then maybe you can avoid that worst season. But if you are moving year round, then just make sure you're comfortable with that. Could be an issue. Uh, you're not sure how you're going to deal with being at 8,000 feet elevation, it out. I think that would be my bottom line with all of these is test it out. Don't show up somewhere expecting that you're just going to live there for 20 years. It out, make sure you're comfortable and going to be okay. Natural disasters too. No, like my wife's not comfortable with just the scare of earthquakes in Mexico City. They don't happen that often. For me, not a big scare, but if it makes it uncomfortable, if you're going to be nervous, then it's not a good choice. So, whatever your level of comfort is with the risk, either do enough research that you're comfortable, or maybe you're excluding a city for something, whether reasonable or not. If you're not comfortable, maybe it's not a good choice. All right, air quality. On a vacation, maybe air quality isn't as big of an issue, but temperature inversions, there could be reasons why air quality could be fine for a week's vacation, but if you're there for a year, you may have issues. I think that's pretty fair there. City size, think about that. I know for me, sometimes I'll be on a vacation and like these smaller towns are so cute and fun. But if I'm going to be there for several years, a cute town might not have enough to be entertained or keep have an interest that I'm going to be content there. So again, it's worth testing it out. What's good for a 2-week visit may not be good for a 10-year living situation. So what works? There's trade-offs. Large cities, of course, have a lot more things going on, shopping, entertainment. You're going to have access to a lot more. You are a little bit more anonymous. There's probably more foreigners, more diversity. Smaller towns, you might stick out a bit more. It might be harder to sneak in. Could be lower costs for housing, especially. Could be calmer. Traffic might be less of an issue. Healthcare access, airport access, factors to think about when you're thinking about larger city versus smaller town. Yeah, of course, visit before you go. Airport access, I think for me, that's a big one. To be able to get back to your home country if you need to, or if you want to have access to visit friends, family, or you want friends, family to have access to visit you. Direct flights, cost of flights, how are flights happening, even to just other places for access to escapes, but holidays and leisure. Yeah, check what there are baggage policies, how good they are with delays, and how they are. Because you may at first glance see good deals, but how is that? Proximity to your support network. Be lonely. You could feel like an outsider when you're out of it's a small number of us that are wanting to live outside of our country of birth. Like 3.5% of the world population that live outside of the birth. It's not that many. So it can be lonely. You want to try to find a new network where you go in your host country, your host city, your host community, but it's, so you want to stay connected with your existing network. So, zone differences, travel times, costs to visits, to have people visit you, even when you're considering apartments or housing, space, is it going to be comfortable for people to visit you if that's you're going to want? If you have aging parents, how's that going to work out? Or adult children, how's that going to work out for them to visit you or you to visit them? And just it's could be good to build routines to stay in touch, just regular calls or group chats or some kind of way. Again, especially initially while you're building your host in your new area. Language is a big deal, especially if it's not going to be an English language host community. It's fun having a new language, but it's a challenge. It's tiring, especially initially. It's tiring translating everything, speaking in a new language all the time. It gets easier with time, but and you're not changes. A lot of times you're just battling to keep up with what's being said, what's being communicated, and communicating, and you're not funny and witty and um, making your personality is not the same. You're just trying to battle to keep up. So it's an issue, and it's just an ongoing I don't say challenge, but just an ongoing process to learn new languages. And it's great challenge. It's good for your brain. It's discourage it, but just beware of that you're gonna have that. And maybe you're already fluent in the host country language. Great, good. Not gonna have problems, but just know if you're moving to a country where maybe you've classes before, but you're not fluent and super comfortable, just know that's going to be something that you're going to want to put some time into because it just makes life easier. It's going to connect with the community. You're going to be able to deal with situations a lot better if you can speak the host country language. So at whatever level, you don't have to be fluent, but you're going to want to speak the better. And so you're going to want to make progress over time. Of Americans, and this sounds so selfish, but it's to be able to access some American community at some point. And maybe you live in a community, I mean, just from the Peace Corps, maybe you live in a community and there's very little American people there. But if you can get to some Americans at some point, just to have people you can relate to, have common experiences with, it's helpful. It can just help make your experience there a little better. You just have some common history, a little bit of a different connection, not a better connection, but you just have some common pieces because you've grown up in this similar culture. That could be very important for some people. That could be not important for others. Just think about it. Do you want to be near some community that you can access? Should it be a small community, a bigger community? Just be aware of that. You know, for some people, this might be very important. For some people, not as important, but could be helpful for some people. And there's a lot of platforms, meetup groups, Facebook, WhatsApp, where you can connect and get a hiking group or climbing group or, I don't know, surfing group. We have a couple shared interest groups where you can find some people that just connect to make your time a little better. Safety is something to consider as you're selecting a city, as you're trying to think about how you can make this a new life. You make sure it's an area you're comfortable with. And everyone has different comfort levels. If you're a single woman, elderly, you might have different comfort criteria than a 20-year-old or something. How are different communities treated? How's the legal system? How is it for you walking alone? There's not a clear black and white, this is good, bad. Everyone's going to have different criteria, but know what you're with. Because that could be an issue. And a lot of times, if you're in a more touristy area, it's more protected. It could be more expensive. So could be some trade-offs too. Test it out. Don't just dive in, buy a place, and then find out that you're not comfortable there. Live for a while. Activities and lifestyle. Again, you like to do what's going to help you stay there and have a fulfilled life there. Do you like, what are your activities? Gym? What makes you feel good? Volunteering? Seek out those activities when you're looking for a community, or if you've chosen a community, find what for you. And if you've dove in and said, I want to be in wherever, Guadalajara, or I want to be in Valencia, then search that out. And you're renting a place and you can't find activities that fit for you, then maybe you're going to pick up and find another place that have activities that'll make a nice, fulfilling retirement or experience as a remote worker. Again, I just recommend just renting first. I'd recommend short-term rental. Check it out. You may have done all your internet work and you feel like it's great, or you've done a 2-week trip and you really think you like this town, but until you're there through the ups and downs or in certain neighborhoods through the different seasons, it would be nice to test it out a little longer in rent and see if you really like it for just headaches. Just you don't have to deal with the bureaucracy or the paying taxes or dealing with repairs or utilities. You could just pick up and leave if it ends up not being what you want. You can avoid any scams or, because you're just paying a monthly fee. I don't want to discourage anyone, but just think, it's a fun process thinking about where you want to be. There's a lot of factors. Do your research. I mean, much information out there, it can be almost overwhelming with, oh, I don't want to miss, the place. And there isn't a perfect place. Everywhere has its trade-offs. But, research and then try somewhere out. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then modify, build on what you've learned and pick another place. And great. I'm the best with exploring, and just know you're one of the rare people who want to challenge yourself and an adventure to live outside the you were born in. So research, visit person, consult with people if you need, build and be patient, be flexible, and you're going to be unique. Your adventure is going to be unique. You can watch all the YouTube videos or the TikTok little shorts you want, but your experience will be unique. And so your expectations, be careful with your expectations. I'll be the best. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm Bill Holiday, AIO Financial. We're fee-only financial advisors. We help people with investments, retirement planning, estate planning, taxes, insurance. We with a lot of expats, Americans living abroad. Good luck. Take care. Thank you. Bye.